Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone to mute their phone. You can do this by pressing star 6. Please unmute yourself when called to speak, again pressing star 6. It is very important for all others to remain muted. Thank you. All right, we will start with the Board of Commissioners roll call. Commissioner Bell.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning. Commissioner Yamamoto.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. We will do as we always do and jump in first with Adventist Health Tillamook. Eric Swanson.
Hey, good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
Hey, we have 14 patients in the hospital today, plus one brand new baby. We have 13 surgery cases scheduled today. Ambulance crews did 13 911 calls yesterday. No transfers, no transports home. 108 patients boarding in emergency departments across Oregon today. That's 21 more than yesterday. 397 discharge delays. That's no change from the day before. A couple little things I want to share with you. One, we're going to be starting a roofing project in the next couple of weeks. It's a project to patch some spots that need to be repaired on our roof on the hospital building itself. So it should be no disruption to our patients, but we're meeting here in a few minutes just to talk about what are the logistics of that and where will supplies be stored and how do they make it to the roof and all of that kind of stuff. And we'll be doing some sort of press release just to let folks know if there's going to be any disruption to the normal flow around the hospital. But we'll be doing, I think, 3 sections of the roof over the next 3 years, so to get it completely redone. If you know Marie Brown, she's one of our certified nurse assistants, and she is amazing. And we had the privilege of awarding her our Associate of the Month last month. And Marie has worked for us for, a long time, probably 20 years. And she is just a star. And everyone loves Marie. And it was so much fun to celebrate with her last week. Her daughter and son both came and joined the celebration. So if you know Marie and if you see her, make sure you thank her for the good work and congratulate her. Last thing I want to share with you is that Adventist Health has added one more hospital to the Adventist Health family, and that hospital was the Beverly Hospital in Montebello, California. Earlier this year, they filed for bankruptcy in April, and we were awarded the hospital by the bankruptcy judge, and it is about 10 miles from our hospital in East LA, the White Memorial. So it'll function under the White Memorial's address and basically it's a 220-bed hospital, and that allows White Memorial, who's running out of room, to have another hospital where they can care for patients. So we're glad to help the Montebello community out by keeping an emergency department and hospital open in their community, and we just welcome them to the Adventist Health family. So unless you have questions, that's all I've got for you this morning.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate that. Any questions for Eric, commissioners? Okay, Eric, I don't hear any, so thank you so much for joining us, and we will move on to the Coastal Caucus, and I do believe Senator Weber is with us this morning.
Thank you, I am. What a beautiful day, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And I was so surprised to find out that it was 42 degrees when I went outside to walk the dog. And we shouldn't be surprised. Yesterday I had to go to the Portland area, and I was amazed at how many of the vine maple have already turned red in the understory of the forest. So it gives a real wonderful dimension and color to the trip over. I'm sure you'll all notice that. And I noticed that the tree by the courthouse, the maple, has almost lost all of its leaves. So fall is here. And I'm getting pictures regularly from northern Minnesota about the aurora borealis and how beautiful that is this year. So it truly is fall. I've had a really busy week. I was able to participate finally in a group that I had missed participating in because I wasn't in the area, and that's the COPAC, the Columbia Pacific Economic Development arm of our region, and the Northwest Act, which is the ODOT arm of the organization, and to hear what is happening in our area especially. This is an excellent opportunity, especially for our elected officials, to be able to go and see exactly what's happening in other areas of our district. The amazing thing is that a lot of what happens in the rest of the district is not unlike what happens here on the coast and in Tillamook County. And sometimes we are given additional opportunities by their experiences to be able to enhance our lives and our opportunities. So that was a really good meeting. And it was also nice to once again connect with some of the people from different areas that I hadn't been able to see in a while. Then on Friday, we had the privilege of having the Association of Oregon Counties Region 7 meeting, and I'm sure you're going to hear more about that from our county commissioners, but that was also a great meeting to hear of all of what is happening in the area. It was at the Red Barn at the Creamery, and it was well attended by a lot of people from Region 7. And there is that virtual option, and I am amazed always to see the number of people who are here virtually to be able to participate. But it was really a good meeting. And that was followed by the wildfire hazard mapping, and that also brought up a lot of concerns for the area and questions about the mapping that has occurred. And I think that it has stimulated some of the people that were there to go back and look at some of the issues that were brought up in that meeting that will impact us and the wildlife mapping. There were a lot of questions asked about insurance and how these maps will affect our insurance, which we were assured that they would not. But that's something that we always have to be watching out for. We are the home of the Tillamook burn, and a lot can happen in our forests, and we have to make sure that we are prepared and that we can work to make sure that that isn't going to happen again. Then I had the opportunity to meet with the governor's regional solutions coordinator for our area. And I had a lot of things that I wanted him especially to bring forward in his next coordinators meeting. The challenges for housing that we have here, the infrastructure challenges that we have. We need engineers to be able to evaluate some of our projects. And I think that we could really use some help from the governor on these things. And she has seemed very willing to listen. And so I'm hoping that the message that I was able to send is going to be heard. Another issue that we discussed was the DEQ, the fish processors, and how they are going to be able to handle water quality issues. I have to assure you that our fish processors are doing everything that they can to be able to ensure that the effluent that comes out of their plants is going to be actually cleaner than what comes in. So I think they need to be acknowledged for that. So I hope that our message from the coast will go forward to the governor's office. Later today, I'm going to start the rest of the week. Yesterday, I was sort of a greeter at a golf tournament at Pumpkin Ridge. I've never sat out on a golf course and just passed out Tillamook cheese and greeted people before, and it was a very pleasant day. Temperature was perfect, and it was nice to be out there with a lot of people that were lobbyists and representatives and senators and staff, and it was a very pleasant day. Later today, like I said, I'm going to start meeting with some constituents over issues that they have that are impacting their lives, that they may need a little help and a boost from an agency to get things accomplished. And I'm also going to be meeting with a couple of people that have some proposed legislation that they would like me to pursue, especially in education. And so we're going to be talking, vetting that all out. And I'm also going to be having a meeting this week about Highway 30. And you know, that's the highway that runs along the Columbia. And there's a 25-mile stretch in there that could use some improvement, safety improvements. And the school districts in that area are especially concerned because there have been deaths of pedestrians. And so we're going to be talking about that. And then I also have another meeting this week to talk about offshore wind. And I am especially concerned about the research that is coming out of the East Coast regarding whale deaths. And could the whale deaths be impacted by the huge structures that are being put into the ocean on the East Coast, especially for wind energy? And you know that is proposed for our South Coast. And so there's a lot of research that has to be done before it actually comes to fruition on our coast, because it could possibly impact our seafood industry, which is vital to our coast and its economic health. And you know, the exports that we have that come from this area regarding fish and crab especially. And so while it isn't going to be proposed for our area, it could still be impacting our area. So that's something we have to really pay attention to. I want to congratulate the YMCA on a wonderful event that they had this past weekend. I have heard I was not able to attend because I was committed to another event and that I had prior. And I just know that the YMCA and the people that were there and had a wonderful time are continuing to support that organization, which is doing so much for our community. And I also want to congratulate Marie Brown. I knew last week that she had received that award, and I have had her children in my classroom, and Marie Brown is truly an incredible person. And when I was in the hospital the last time, when I broke my legs, she was right there, and I appreciated everything she did for me so much. Her kindness and her knowledge, it was, thank you, Marie. Thank you. And so I think that that concludes my report. Sorry if I went on and on, but I appreciate being able to talk with you all, and thank you, Tillamook County, for providing this opportunity.
Thank you, Senator. I don't have to say, the Senator and I have been in the same place at the same time so many times over this last couple of weeks. I don't know that there'll be anything left for me to share. So it's lovely to see you in our community in so many places, Senator.
Thank you.
Any questions for the Senator before we move on? Okay, not hearing any. I did take a peek. I do not see Representative Javity's phone number, but I'm going to pause for just a second in case either I missed it or he slipped in on a different phone number. Okay, not hearing anything. We will move on to the Tillamook County Community Health Centers. And I actually see Marlene Putman this morning, so I'm going to assume she's taking the spot for Ed this morning. Good morning, Marlene.
You are correct. Good morning. Yes, Ed is in some other meetings, and I haven't shared during these for a while, so I offered to join and give a brief update today. So I know we're tired of COVID-19, but as we all know, it's still present in our community, in the state and elsewhere, and we are seeing an increase in COVID-19 cases, and consequently, an increase in requests for COVID-19 related vaccines and services. So I'm providing an update on the current guidelines and the availability of vaccines and test kits for those of you that are interested. So if someone in the general public tests positive for COVID, regardless of vaccination status or prior infection with COVID-19, it's recommended to do these things. Stay home until 24 hours after the fever is gone without use of a fever-reducing medication and all other COVID-19 symptoms are improving. Avoid contact with high-risk individuals. That's things like residents of congregate care facilities, persons with immunocompromised conditions, etc. for 10 days. Mask when they're around other people in the 10 days after they become sick or test positive. It's really not new information there, but just by way of a reminder. Exposure to COVID-19 can still occur in the community, at home or at work. If a person has a high-risk exposure, which is prolonged close contact with an individual with COVID-19 where you're not wearing the appropriate PPE, then you should consult with your healthcare provider to determine the need for testing, self-monitoring for symptoms, and wearing of masks. Additionally, by way of a reminder, free COVID-19 test kits continue to be available. They're at county libraries and at the health center's front desk. COVID-19 testing is also available with us by appointment and probably as well with other primary care providers throughout the county. There's a cost associated with seeing a provider for testing, just by way of a reminder for folks on that. The new monovalent vaccine, so availability of the new vaccine. Oh, I should remind, so monovalent vaccine is designed to protect people against the most prevalent variant of COVID-19, not like 2, which is the bivalent, or more variants. It has been approved and we have pre-ordered the vaccine, but we currently do not have it in stock. So I know people are anxious and asking when's the vaccine going to be available. Again, it's been ordered. We do not have it in stock. And the vaccine is no longer free. If you do not have insurance, a sliding fee scale is available with the health center, and we can figure out something that's affordable for you to get that vaccine. So stay tuned. We'll be making announcements next week for the schedule of walk-in clinics with locations in North, Central, and South Tillamook County, hopefully with the vaccine information as well. So switching from COVID-19, well water testing is underway. It's clean and safe drinking water is an important part of your health. So if you get your water from a well, you should inspect your well and test the water every year for nitrates and bacteria. Testing is important because contaminated water or a damaged well can lead to both short and long-term health problems. The health center is offering free nitrate and bacteria testing to well users during the whole month of September. If you want to learn more about it, sign up as well and go to tillamookchc.org/wells. You can look on our website for information too at Tillamook CHC. That's where we're referring you. And another reminder, it's that time of year, maybe you didn't get your wellness exam because you were getting your child's exam or taking care of someone else. Please get that scheduled. Your health is important. And we are offering some incentives in the form of gift cards for anyone scheduling their wellness visit between now and December 31st. So that's for ages 3 and up through all ages. And our mobile clinic is providing dental services. We're stationed in Nehalem now every second and fourth Monday of every month at the bottom gravel parking lot on the corner of Highway 101 and 7th Street to serve our North County residents. The schedule is still open. You can call our office for information and to book an appointment at 842-2356. And those are my general updates for today. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Marlene. Any questions for Marlene? Hearing none, thank you so much for joining us. It was wonderful to hear your voice again.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the Nehalem Bay Health Center and Pharmacy. Gail.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, congratulations, Marie Brown, Associate of the Month for Adventist. It's very exciting. Hopefully one day I get to meet you. And here at the Nehalem Bay Health Center and Pharmacy, yes, we are also waiting for the arrival of the new updated monovalent COVID vaccine, and we're ready to start administering them to everyone as soon as we get them. We also do have plenty of the testing kits and masks, so if you do need some, please don't hesitate to stop by and pick them up. And that is just a little bit from us here in Wheeler. Of course, we're here to serve you in other ways. If you're interested in scheduling an appointment with one of our medical providers, including behavioral health, please give us a call at 800-368-5182 for more information or to schedule an appointment. And thank you.
Hey, Gail, can I put you on the spot for just a quick minute?
Sure.
I wanted to just highlight your pharmacy services and have you let folks know what's available. I know with the closing of Tillamook Pharmacy, people are feeling very stretched to try to receive their much needed medications. And I know, or I believe for county employees as an example, that your pharmacy is a covered pharmacy, but I assume for others in the community that may also be true. Can you just talk a little bit about those services?
Yes, of course. Our pharmacy, we do have a pharmacy here in Wheeler, and it is available and open to patients as well as those who may have been affected by the closing of the Tillamook Pharmacy. And it's fairly easy. The best advice is to, if you're interested, is to give us a call, and we can help you transfer your prescriptions over to us here. And we have staff members available. We have seen an uptick in this, and we are here to help serve you and assist in any way that we can.
Perfect. Thank you. I know that there's a lot of concern in the community and just a lot of people struggling with the changeover. It's just a huge loss of capacity to our community. So thank you for being available to serve and just reminding people that you all are there.
Yes, of course.
Okay, thank you. All right, I know that Frank Hanna Williams from Tillamook Family Counseling Center was not able to join us today. So next up is the Sheriff's Office, and I see Sheriff Brown. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. I am here. So the only thing I've got for today is just a reminder about the town hall series that I have coming up this week. First one starts tomorrow, which is Wednesday, and it's going to be at the local Tillamook branch. It starts at 4 o'clock. Hoping to see a lot of people there and be able to answer questions. I'm very excited about that. Other than that, I don't really have a lot to update everybody on. Just encourage you to follow our Facebook page. We generally try to do as much information through that as we can, and I can take any questions if need be.
Perfect, thank you. Any questions for the Sheriff? Okay, not hearing any. Thank you for being here. We will move on. Emergency Management is also unavailable to join us today, so we will jump right into the Board of Commissioners. Commissioner Bell.
Good morning, everyone. Well, I will also repeat some things that Senator Weber was talking about, because we were at some of the same meetings this last week. We had on Friday, as the Senator mentioned, we had a District 7 meeting of the Association of Oregon Counties. I'd like to thank TCCA, the Tillamook County Creamery Association, for hosting that meeting at the Red Barn. It was a great opportunity to bring together commissioners and other elected officials and department leaders from several counties in District 7. That's Columbia, Clatsop, Tillamook, Lincoln, and Senator Weber, and other visitors from other organizations like City County Insurance and OSU Extension Service, etc. And so we have that meeting annually, and it was really great. It was a terrific opportunity to hear about what's going on in other counties, talk about shared issues, things that we all have in common. For example, we talked about Measure 110, we talked about homelessness, we talked about short-term rentals. We also heard a terrific legislative update from the Association of Oregon Counties.
we heard a great update about roads. That's one really interesting part of the meeting for me as the liaison to Public Works is that we get information about the road systems for all of the counties in our district and funding sources and challenges, et cetera. So it was all very good and worthwhile. It was entirely worthwhile, and I'm sure my colleagues will talk about that a little more. But thereafter, as the senator also mentioned, we had a meeting about wildfire mapping, which was the result of Senate Bill 762, which was passed in 2021. So some people might vaguely remember this. After the terrible wildfires of 2020, the Senate passed a bill that said that we needed to map, in Oregon, we needed to map wildfire vulnerable areas and make some changes about those areas for fire hardening, et cetera. And so there was a lot of press about it at the time. They came up with an initial wildfire mapping plan that was not well received, and so they went back to the table to rework it. So this is the second working, they being the Oregon Department of Forestry in association with OSU and some other organizations that are doing that work. So this is the second coming of the wildfire map, and they made a great presentation to us, all those folks, and showed us the maps for not only for our district, but also we got to generally see maps for the rest of the state. And the upshot of it is that Tillamook County is not recognized as an extreme fire danger. So people were concerned when the first maps came out. They were concerned about regulatory requirements. For example, something people were talking a lot about last year was if you were in a wildland-urban interface and you were in an extreme fire danger zone, you might have to remove the trees around your house for a certain distance. That's one thing that people were up in arms about. So what we learned on Friday is that Tillamook County is not in any mapped extreme danger, which obviously doesn't mean we're not in danger, but we're not in any mapped extreme danger. So we have, of course, wildland-urban interface, and what that means is people living in the forest, but we're considered, even in our driest areas, we're considered a moderate danger. So we're not looking at any regulatory changes in Tillamook County as a result of this. So we talked about that, and it's also true, as the senator mentioned, that, this is the home of the Tillamook burn. And looking at our neighbors just to the south in Lincoln County, they experienced a devastating wildfire. So just recently. So if it was that, even though we're not mapped in an extreme or severe danger zone, we're in the danger zone. And so we talked about that, like what are the things that we can do to, for instance, looking at the map for the wildland-urban interface for people who are living in the forest. Generally in Tillamook County, it's along our riverway. So, and we have several, obviously. So all of those folks are at greater danger than people who live right next to the coast. So we talked about what can we do to support people, what can we do to educate people, what can we do to help people keep themselves and their homes more safe. So that was a very robust conversation, and the panel provided us with a lot of resources. So, for example, the Oregon State Fire Marshal has a website that you can visit called OregonDefensiblespace.org, and we're going to be talking more. The Department of Forestry has information about fire hardening, meaning making it more difficult for fire to start or ignite at or around your home. So we'll have more information about that forthcoming, but it was a good conversation. The takeaway is we're not subject to any new regulations because of the wildfire map, and however, we certainly have people, Tillamook County residents, at risk of fire. So I think I will stop there. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Bell. Questions for Commissioner Bell? Okay, we will move on to Commissioner Yamamoto.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. Again, I'm sorry I was unable to attend the last community update telephone call. I had other things that I had to take care of. So I do have quite a few things over the past couple of weeks that I want to bring up. So on the 6th, Wednesday, in the afternoon, I of course testified before the Board of Forestry. And of course, as we always do, the topics are the financial viability of the counties and our special districts, as well as the Department of Forestry itself. It's one of the few self-funded departments in the state of Oregon, and they get their money from timber revenue. The state actually keeps almost 37% of the timber revenue before distributing it to the counties and special districts. And I won't go into very much there. I'll talk about more when we get to our meetings with the governor's office, which occurred last week. On Friday of last week, I had an OPAC meeting, Ocean Policy Advisory Council. This was an interesting meeting. We continued to talk about all kinds of things, wind energy, and I'll get into that more because just yesterday I had an Oregon BOEM, Bureau of Ocean Energy Management meeting, where we spent 5 hours just talking about wind energy off the southern Oregon coast, and I'll go into that in more detail also. Also at OPAC, we're continuing to talk about the Rocky Shores issues, as well as marine reserves. One of the issues that continually gets brought up by OPAC is how all these new rules and regs and areas are set aside, but there is no money forthcoming from the state of Oregon to manage these areas that are set aside, whether it be a rocky shore habitat or a marine reserve area. And both sides, the environmental groups and people that demand that we continue to have usage of our shores in Oregon. No one is happy about this, and yet the state of Oregon fails to provide regulation and enforcement in those areas. So that's something we continue to badger the state about. If they're going to do these things, set aside these areas, there has to be a management plan in place. And OPAC continues to have that conversation. Moving on to last week, both Monday and Wednesday. So I know you've heard me talk about the HCP, the Habitat Conservation Plan, and how this is going to be devastating to the trust counties and the special districts within those trust counties. I mean, we're talking a rather large loss of revenue. Again, if you look at historically, in all the state forests in Oregon, we used to produce 250 to 265 million board feet of timber annually. And with the HCP, the first thing that came out was the EIS that came from the services themselves, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, as well as NOAA Fisheries. They predicted that we should be able to get 225 million board feet annually from state forests with the HCP that was developed by the state. Shortly after that, the IPs came out, the implementation plan for the state, which incidentally went into effect July 1st of this year. And according to those IPs, we're down to somewhere between 165 to 182.5 million board feet annually. Every time we get new numbers from the Department of Forestry, our harvest numbers continue to go down. That is going, and again, the IP is already in place. It was adopted by the Board of Forestry. So we're going to be okay for the next year or two because of the way that these sales go. These companies that purchase these sales have 3 years to harvest. It's when we hit that third year, a couple of years from now, where this county could be in some financial trouble. No, not could be, will be in some financial trouble. To the governor's credit, the governor has seen this. She has finally heard our pleas and directed staff. So we are working with the governor's senior natural resource advisor, Jeff Huntington, as well as Melissa Cribbins, former Coos County Commissioner, and Palmer Mason from the Department of Land Conservation Development, which I think was an interesting choice. But the explanation to us is that the governor's office choice of someone from the Department of Land Conservation Development was not for his experience in land use issues, because forestry issues are not really land use, but because he does have a great working relationship with members of the legislature. And what we have found out is the governor is thinking of trying to find ways to keep the counties financially whole. We appreciate this very much. We do. And Monday afternoon and Wednesday afternoon of last week, the Council of Forest Trust Land Counties had the opportunity to sit down with the governor's team and really explain to them the major issues that are going to arise if this habitat conservation plan, as it's currently written, continues to move forward. It is our understanding that the governor is fully supportive of this HCP. But that being said, she wants to find a way to make this less onerous on the trust counties and our special districts. Exactly how much money the governor is thinking about, or how this is going to be distributed, how this is going to work, we're very early in this conversation. We don't know yet, but we appreciate the governor's interest in the concerns and the problems that this HCP is going to bring to the trust counties. So absolutely, we're at the table, and whether or when the governor's office is going to make some sort of a proposal to the trust counties, we don't know. The short session is something that we heard initially that the governor was interested in, this session coming up in 2024, which is a short session. And again, that's why Palmer Mason from the Department of Land Conservation Development was brought into this. Somehow, the governor's office is going to have to find a way to massage the legislature. The legislature is the only place where money can actually come from. But if we're going to do that, the governor has to have an initial plan in place by mid-November of this year, a very short timeline. And I'm very concerned that she's going to be able to make that because there are so many varied concerns from each one of the 15 trust counties. So again, I'm not sure what's going to happen. I'm thinking maybe the long session in 2025 may be more appropriate. And we do have lots of time to work through these issues with the governor's office if indeed we're looking to 2025. So again, I don't know what's going to happen here, but we're pleased to be at the table with the governor's office, and we will try to make the best of what is going to be happening to the trust counties if this HCP were to go into effect. And we're very, very interested to hear what solutions the governor's office might have moving forward. So keep your fingers crossed there. On Friday of last week, again, as was discussed by Commissioner Bell, we did have our AOC District 7 meeting at the Creamery Red Barn, and we appreciate very much the Creamery hosting us for all four of the District 7 counties. And again, we ended that with the Centerville wildfire mapping. And again, there are lots of concerns about the way the maps were developed. That's why they were pulled for almost a year before being brought back. So now when the maps were initially presented, there was no public outreach. And I think the governor's office and the Department of Forestry found out that was not the way to present these kinds of maps. That's why they withdrew the maps. So now they are presenting at each one of our district meetings across the state of Oregon, the AOC district meetings, And so this is a great way to get all of the county commissioners in a room as each of the districts has their meetings to go over the mapping, ask the questions that need to be asked. Again, there are lots of issues. We don't have that much of a fire danger here on the North Coast, but you can't say that we don't have major conflagration. You just need to think back to the Big Burn in the 30s and 40s. So it is absolutely possible here. Homeowners, residents, businesses are concerned about their property insurance rates due to these fire hazard maps. The department says that they have talked to the insurance companies, and the insurance companies have assured them that they're not using these maps to set risk parameters around fire. But I'm a former life and health agent in the state of Oregon. I know how insurance companies work, and I think that might be a little disingenuous to truly believe the insurance companies that they're not using these maps to develop rates and things of that nature. But that being as it may, that's something that we're going to have to keep an eye out further. So yesterday, we had a BOEM meeting, Bureau of Ocean Energy Management. And for the past, 6 or 7 years, I have been on the Oregon BOEM task force when it comes to offshore wind. And we have not had a meeting for, almost a year. But BOEM is very serious now about developing wind energy, and they're going to start off the southern Oregon coast in the state of Oregon, off of Curry County and Coos County. And there are so many issues here that remain unanswered, such as fisheries. This is one of the best whiting fishing grounds off of the west coast. And these arrays of floating wind turbines is going to take out tens of thousands of acres of really great fishing habitat. And the fisheries need to be made whole somehow. Bird strikes are another major issue. When it comes to terrestrial wind, there are issues with raptors being hit. And terrestrially, it's rather a simple situation. You just search under the windmills on a weekly basis, and you can actually do a count of the raptors or other birds that are running into these windmills. In the ocean, you're not going to have that. You're going to be striking birds. They're going to die, fall into the ocean, never to be seen again. How do we keep track of the endangered species flying off of the Oregon coast with these strikes? And you have to understand, especially the turbines off the Oregon coast. These are huge devices. And as the turbines spin, it doesn't look like they're moving very fast, but they're so large. The tip speeds on those turbines are in excess of 100 miles an hour. So it's something that we're going to have to be very careful about. I'm going long here, so I don't want to continue on with all the points that I made at this BOEM meeting, but there is a lot more to be considered here before we just give everyone the green light to put wind energy off the Oregon coast. So with that, Commissioner, I apologize for being as long as I have, and I'll just turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Lots of things happening. Appreciate your participation in things across the state that impact our county. Okay, so I will, I feel like so many things that I did in the last week I did along with the other commissioners and the senators, so I will just touch on those and maybe give a little different perspective. So I know that the Senator talked about our Columbia Pacific Economic Development meeting, and COLPAC is an important partner in our region, and they're an important partner both to our governments and to our private businesses. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what is on Columbia Pacific Economic Development District's work plan for the coming year that may be of interest to folks. One of the pieces that they do is provide financing to businesses for businesses to expand. Sometimes as a small business or as a rural business, it can be difficult to find funding that traditional banks will provide for expansion. And so they have a couple of different loan programs that are specific to providing funding to maybe a higher risk situation for business. So I just invite our local businesses, if you were thinking about an expansion and not sure where to get those resources, obviously you can talk with our local Economic Development Council, but also with Columbia Pacific Economic Development Council. And you can search them up on the website, find them and take a look at their programs. They're really, really quite spectacular in the risk that they're willing to take because they believe in our community. So great opportunity there. Another piece that they have coming up this year that we're very excited about is they've received funding under House Bill 3395 to bring in a regional housing coordinator for our area. We're still kind of waiting for a little bit more guidance from the legislation itself as to what exactly that person will do, but it is the intention for this particular development or this organization that person would focus on infrastructure, which is already a piece they've been working on, and continue to look at infrastructure in our rural cities and in the county itself to make sure that we can get the money we need for that so we can continue to build both housing and businesses. So they just are a really great partner for us in assistance in both technical expertise and financial assistance. So great organization to be a part of. The afternoon of that same day was spent at the Northwest Act, which the Senator talked about as well. And just to highlight a couple of things, we've been talking a lot about the study for Oregon 6, which is now complete. We received the final draft of that at our meeting, and it will be going to the legislature. One of the key pieces about that is the study highlights some fixes that can be done on Highway 6. It highlights fixes all the way from striping and lines, which should be basic maintenance type work, all the way up to adding passing lanes and fixing that slide that we all fight with all the time. But one of the things that's really important to recognize is this study tells us what the problems are, it tells us what the solutions might be, but there is no money yet allocated at the state level to fund the fixes. So this is something that's going to be important going forward, that we as a community get involved and stay involved at letting our legislators know how crucial this is, and ultimately letting legislators on the Transportation Committee at the state level know how important this is, and see if we can't get some money from the legislature specifically toward pieces of this work. The other piece that we heard at this meeting that was very concerning, it also has to do with finances. It has to do with the finances of ODOT. We've been hearing this for a while. ODOT is not adequately funded at a maintenance level, and we are beginning to see the impacts of that across our communities. ODOT wanted to make sure that we understood that this winter may be a bit more challenging than winters in the past. They are currently down 5 staff. And there's a hiring pause in their organization, which means that at the department, at ODOT, they cannot refill these 5 positions. That is going to mean less snowplow drivers, less gravel truck drivers, less folks to really address the concerns that we face in the winter. So this is sort of an early heads up that we may simply see fewer maintenance-related services from ODOT in the coming year because they do not have the funding nor the staff to make it happen. So again, these are conversations that I know that our legislators are well aware of, but there's also the Transportation Committee at the state that needs to understand that the state must prioritize maintenance funding for ODOT if we're going to get the services we need to remain safe and to be able to travel our roadways during the winter months. So that was a really disconcerting thing to hear, that we would expect lesser services in this coming winter. So heads up on that one. District 7 meeting was a great meeting, as we talked about, with the Association of Oregon Counties, District 7. District 7 includes Tillamook, Lincoln, Columbia, and Clatsop and Washington counties. We are District 7. This meeting is a great time for all of us to come together and talk about what's important. I'm sorry, it does not include Washington. Other ones of other groups I said don't include Washington. This is Columbia, Clatsop, Tillamook, and Lincoln counties to come together and talk about what's important in our counties and to talk about how the Association of Oregon Counties supports us and how we can work best together with them. So it was an opportunity for us to do our local elections to this committee to see who will serve and support And the chair of this committee will be Commissioner Magruder from Columbia County, and the vice chair of this committee will be me. So making sure that we are coming together as counties and with AOC to make sure the North Coast gives the services it needs. So great meeting, great opportunity. One of the other things that is always interesting at this meeting, we get a chance to hear from our insurance provider, which is CIS, and they give us a quick look at what's happening and trending in the insurance world that affects the counties. So I thought it was just interesting to look at the top 10 types of claims that counties typically receive, so you know what it is that we are insuring against. The top one is jail medical care, is a huge cost to us. Excessive force claims as related, and again, I'm not suggesting these are specific to our county, but they are the top county claims across the state of Oregon. Fire and smoke damage was number 3, jail suicide was number 4, hiring and retention practices number 5. So you can see that the damage to our buildings is a huge cost we insure against, and then of course a lot of things to do with public safety, not because our public safety is doing anything wrong, but because across the state of Oregon, that's where a lot of the claims occur. So it's just interesting to look at. Insurance is a very large cost for the county. I'm sorry that Sean's not with us today. I was going to have her share that number, but she's at a conference. So just an awareness that your county is insuring against the biggest concerns to make sure we are not taken down by a huge insurance claim that wipes out all of the good that your tax dollars could do. So that was District 7 meeting. Again, we talked about a lot of things, fire maps. I think Commissioner Bell covered really well. Couple other things I want to bring up. Commissioner Yamamoto talked about timber revenue and how we'd be okay over the next year or two, and the only caveat that I would like to put on that is okay means we're not dropping below our current level, but I do want to continue to highlight that at our current level of property taxes and timber revenues, we have ended the last 3 years at a loss for the county. So okay doesn't mean that we have enough revenue coming in to cover the full expenses of the county. It means that it's not getting significantly worse yet. We have had some good timber years in the past that have given us some funds that allow us to weather the difficult years while we look forward to future good years. And I think what's really important in this conversation around timber revenue is to recognize that we are currently in a lower timber cycle. $4.5 million in timber revenue coming in last year, 4.5 coming in the year before, as opposed to years of 6 million and 7 million in prior years. So we are on a low cycle right now. And as we look ahead to the future, we expect the low cycle to be the norm. So I think that's one of the important pieces about timber is people, look at it and say, well, you've always made it before. And we have. We've had good years balanced by bad years. It's typically been about a 3-year cycle of 3 years of up timber, 3 years of down timber. But what we're looking at now is already being in a down cycle and heading for what we expect to be further down cycles rather than the traditional up cycle that would balance us. So just kind of when we say it's okay for the next year or two, we mean it is going to be what we've received, perhaps 4.5, without the extra to pull us back up. So we do have some important work to do as a county related to our finances to make sure that we can live within our means and that we don't overspend what savings we have accumulated. So you will continue to hear a lot from me about that. I tend to be a very fiscally conservative person, and I am very concerned that the county stay within its means financially. And timber has allowed us a lot of flexibility that I fear we are losing. Okay, the last thing I'm going to comment on is you will see, if you are watching our agenda for this week for our Board of Commissioners meeting tomorrow, that we have a drought declaration on our agenda for tomorrow, and I know we have talked a bit about on this call about water shortages across the county. We have had individuals whose wells are going dry. We have numerous cities who have put some form of water rationing in place, whether it is voluntary or whether it is required. We have both going on in our cities and our special water districts across the county. So we are set tomorrow to discuss and potentially declare a drought across our county, which would open up opportunities to receive additional services through the emergency management program at the state of Oregon. We believe this is an important step to take. We believe that we have at least another month, maybe 2 months of dry weather before we're expecting any impactful rain. We think it will get worse before it gets better, and we want the services to be available to our water districts and to our cities and to our individuals who are challenged. The county does not supply water in any situation across the state or across the county, but we are the only body that can declare this emergency, as I understand it, to activate state resources. So we will be making that, having that conversation, and I hope making that declaration tomorrow to open up resources for those who need it. And with that, I'm going to finish my report, and we will move on. We do not have Deb Simmons from Manzanita today. She did share an email that she tested COVID positive and allowed me to share that because she wanted everyone to realize COVID is here and that we do still need to be aware and cautious. Please test. Please don't share it with your friends and neighbors. So I'm sorry that Deb won't be with us today, but we wish her well. We move on to Rockaway Beach, where I should have Mayor Charles McNeely.
Good morning, Commissioners in Tillamook County. I will just make it short and with a shout out to Rockaway Beach Chamber of Commerce, as the 47th Annual Kite Festival last weekend was a huge success. Saturday's crowds and traffic felt like we were back at the 4th of July. Mm-hmm. So with that, I'll turn it back to you.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Okay, moving on to Garibaldi, and I think I have acting mayor or interim mayor Katie Fenlon with us.
You do indeed. It's just been a busy week reaching out to candidates to schedule interviews for the permanent city manager. We do have that first round on Friday, so hopefully we'll be reaching out to a handful of members of the community to join the extended interview panel for October 6th. And I do know our planning commission met recently as well, and they're starting to dig into the middle housing bills and working on grants for the comp plan update. That's all I had.
All right, wonderful, thank you. Okay, moving on to Bay City, and I'm not sure if I have interim mayor Kathleen Baker with us today. Okay, not hearing anything, we will go ahead and move on to the city of Tillamook. City Manager Nathan George.
Good morning, Commissioner. You okay?
Yes, I can.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So I wanted to give a brief overview of our council meeting last night. I also believe I may have failed to give a brief overview on the last meeting. That's because it was on a Tuesday, and the Tuesday evening I think it threw me off a little bit. So just two quick updates. So first of all, on the September 5th meeting, which is a Tuesday, council had some discussion on our vacancies for council, and looking at that, we had our city attorney there to kind of figure out how that works with our vacancies when the councilor is not able to attend for a long time. So we're still looking at that. But essentially, the councilor can stay on council, and they can have a temporary person appointed in their stead. Well, the council can appoint someone if they so desire. So with that said, with this meeting last night, council has asked, and we'll put a little note out, but we have one councilor in Ward 2 who is not able to attend for a foreseeable future. So we are putting out a little post on our website and on social media that if someone would like to, someone that lives in Ward 2 would like to serve temporarily on the council, then they are welcome to submit a letter of intent, and we'll put instructions on our website and also social media for that. So, League of Oregon Cities, some of the councils will be attending that. We had some discussion with the downtown flower baskets, as I had reported earlier this year. Unfortunately, they were mistakenly given the wrong and too much fertilizer that killed them. So we had looked at some ideas to make it a little bit nicer next year. We had Jamie Rhodes, who is the executive director of Tillamook Early Learning Center, was appointed to the Planning Commission, and the city voted to reapprove the Southern Flow Corridor Memorandum of Understanding with Tillamook County. That's basically the same memorandum of understanding with the city taking over a portion of the property, which was included in the Southern Flow Corridor, which is around 60 acres, I believe. It was simply an update on the dates because the timelines had expired. So, and then we had some discussion on the sex offender registry, and the conclusion of that was that the state already has a registry, and so the city will not be pursuing anything. On the meeting from last night, as soon as I find it here, here it is. So last night we had some discussion on the June Dairy parade route and process, and what I wanted to say is thank you. We had reached out to all of the entities that we could think of, including the fire district and ambulance and county and the Tillamook Revitalization and Association, the chamber, the ODOT, and of course the city. We met and talked about the June Dairy parade route and process, and we reached out to everyone. We had several people attend, which was wonderful. We had to get all the input we possibly could on 3 priorities of the June Dairy Parade, which are safety, sustainability, and of course a wonderful event for our community. So the recommendation was that they made to me as the person who signs those special event permits was that we would continue the same route. We make some changes in how we do some of the processing, and also the volunteers will be seeking, well, the chamber specifically, the TRA, Tillamook Revitalization Association, be seeking volunteers from the community to help make that a more sustainable event, because right now the June Dairy Parade uses all of our public works, all of our police, and sometimes up to half of our city staff just to run it. So it's extremely draining, and our employees can't have any time off during that weekend. So it will now be sustainable. We're very happy to have that partnership with the TRA, with the chamber, and we are happy. ODOT was fine with the route, and they chose not to make any changes. So we're very happy about the result. Most of all, I'm really happy that we had so many people from our community in the cross-section come through and give us recommendations and take input, or provide input, so I really appreciate that. Also, we, back in April, I believe it was, I think it was April 17th, the council appointed a revenue task force, and Councilor Torres and Councilor Henson on that task force, and what they're looking at is revenues for our city. The city has not kept up with its revenues for many decades, and we have a situation where I've come in and we've been working really hard in creating what's called high performance organization, where we're empowering employees, creating efficiencies and effectiveness, creating a good, healthy working environment, and getting things done. And we're doing 4 or 5 times what we did with the same amount of employees, but it is to a point now where we need more revenues to fix things and get our infrastructure in place. As everyone knows, we have really bad infrastructure that's been neglected for many decades. So in order to do that, the Revenue Task Force has been looking at proposals, and one of the proposals that they're looking at is a street maintenance fee. So they talked about that last night, and that was just open discussion in the beginning, and they've directed the council, directed staff to come back with more information and some needs analysis, and we will bring that back to the council. So that is a positive note, for we have significant issues with our revenue, especially in our streets department. Also, we had, let's see here, already talked about the vacancies occurrence, so that was good, and that is pretty much it for last night. So, in the police department, Lieutenant Trucks attended the 11th annual Oregon Fallen Badge Foundation golf tournament last week. There were over 250 golfers from all over the state of Oregon who converged on Pumpkin Ridge Golf Course. Both the public and private side of Public Ridge was used. And for your information, Lieutenant Troxel wasn't golfing. He was helping set up and work actually at the foundation to help raise money for people, well, for the Oregon Fallen Badge Foundation. The Tillamook Police Department was busy this week with several new criminal cases, traffic citations issued, and arrests made. While school's back in session, your police department is still busy with what feels like a summer-level activity. Lieutenant Troxel met with the TFCC, Tillamook, oh gosh, what is that? The Family Counseling Center, crisis to ensure connectivity between the police department and the crisis team. We are so thankful for our rich partnership with the TFCC and crisis team. And conversations with the crisis intervention training continue with TFCC, the Tillamook Police Department, and the hospital. And don't forget, Wednesday, tomorrow, the 20th, the police department will have officers' coffee with a cop at Starbucks. And we thank Starbucks for providing this opportunity for our citizens to interact with their officers. I believe the time is somewhere around 9 o'clock, so it is on our website and people can look it up. Yeah, or you can call for City Hall for any questions. Also, I believe it's on social media as well. Water Distribution Division, our Public Works Department will be fixing a leak on our water transmission main line south of town on the shoulder of the highway. Please be cautious while driving through the work zone. The door hanger late note payment notices will be going out today at noon. Street Division will be working on trying to get a load of wood chips for Goodspeed Park and Coatesville Park. These wood chips must be they must be re-engineered, they must be engineered as anti-sliver chips, and we have to travel to Portland to get them. So sometimes people ask, hey, can you just have chips from the TPUD and whatnot? That's great for the dog park, but for the actual park where children are at, we must have a special engineered chip that is anti-sliver. The new street sweeper will be out hitting roads and a few routes throughout the town, and the wastewater treatment division is working on a couple of issues that arose in the wastewater treatment plant, working alongside the Water Distribution Division. So we combined both divisions. They were able to work fast yesterday to get the water plant back online, and we'll be finishing the rest of the work throughout the week. And Public Works would like to thank everyone for making the movie night in the park so successful last Friday at Goodspeed Park. The turnout was great, and it was fun seeing everyone enjoy the movie. One thing I also mentioned, I didn't mention here, but at the council meeting is that I announced it last week, but our comprehensive compensation study, which was performed by the Lane Council of Governments, which is the premier entity for doing public comparisons of salaries and compensation studies, has been completed. And we are actually really grateful to our city council, who gave us sufficient funding in our budget to get all of our employees to a market rate. It doesn't mean that all of them are adjusted, but the majority will be adjusted to a market rate, which is a comparable rate with other cities within a certain population range, and mostly coastal cities. There are a lot of factors that went into that study. So our starting wages will be raised, and all of our employees will be where they should be at a competitive salary. Also, we'll be adjusting that salary each year with the rate. With the housing. I'm so sorry. There's so much going on with the cost of living index. So we will keep that up to date from now on. Our police department has always kept it up to date through their union, but the rest of the city has not been kept up to date, but it will not be kept up to date from here on out. So we're very excited that goes into effect with their September 16th pay, payable at the end of the month. So we're very, very excited about that and working with our employees to announce that individually. So also we have several positions available and are looking for applicants in the Public Works Department. Effective in the middle of September, our starting wages have been increased to market rate for comparable cities, Oregon and Coast. That's what I said earlier, but we are really confident this will help with employee attraction and retention. So please visit our website or stop by City Hall for an application. Reminder, if you see something, please call 911 or emergencies for non-dispatch, non-emergencies. Just remember, if you see something, say something. And the next council meeting will be held on Monday, October 2nd, 2023, 7 p.m. We hope anyone who is interested will come attend. And that's all I have, Commissioner. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate that. Great information. Okay, moving on to South County. Doug Olson.
Well, good morning, Commissioner. Nice day here in Pacific City. I'll just mention a couple of things quickly. The Cycle Oregon event now is history. They closed it out on Wednesday and moved on to their next stop, which I believe was Toledo. Lots of positive feedback. There was one accident, but other than that, very positive feedback. And incidentally, one interesting topic that came up, maybe part of the reason that they're not going to be doing it at this level in the future. They may do shorter rides, but not a big one. It's very, very hard to get the support vendors like the showers and the food and so on, because many of them this time of year are out with the wildfire fighters, which of course need support when they're out in the woods. They have no facilities, no food, and so on. So that might have something to do with it. The second event that just completed over the weekend was the Longboard Classic. And that, by all accounts, was also a success, and will come back again about a year from now. Then our chamber will be meeting 2 weeks from today. I believe that's October 3rd. And rather than meet at our usual spot at the Kiwanis Community Center, we'll be at Nestucca High School in new facility or newer renovated facility, which is referred to as the Career and Technical Education Learning Laboratory. Now, when I was in high school, we called that a shop, and I think that's probably what it is, but it's new and improved, and it really offers a lot of opportunities for students who may want some additional education in a very practical area where they can graduate high school and get a rather well-paying job. So that's what's coming up in the future. And finally, I'll add one more comment. I'll put my PUD director hat on and follow up on the remarks Commissioner Yamamoto made about offshore wind. Just to say that your PUD and all the utilities in the Northwest are watching very, very carefully what is going on and proposed off the southern Oregon coast. If that comes to pass, it will essentially generate as much electricity as the 4 Snake River dams, which is roughly equivalent to the amount of electricity consumed by the city of Seattle. So it is a big deal. And not only would it bring on some issues that the commissioner mentioned, it would also require transmission hookups clear into the I-5 corridor. And of course, that becomes an issue going over mountains and hills and valleys and maybe some communities. So there's a whole lot to that. And of course, if it's successful in that part of Oregon, then they may look further to the north, coming up towards Lincoln County and Tillamook County. Yet to be seen, of course, but the message is that your PUD is watching this very carefully. We've all had several presentations at our regional and state meetings, and so more to come on that, but it's certainly something in the future to pay attention to. So with that, Commissioner, thank you very much, and we'll talk with you another time.
All right, thank you, Doug. Appreciate that. With that, we have reached the south tip of the counties, having started in the north, and we will thank KTIL for broadcasting, everyone for attending, and adjourn this meeting at 9:11 a.m. Thank you, everyone.